Good evening. I'm John Kasich and live from Columbus, Ohio. There's a lot to cover during this hour. First, it's the middle of the night in the Middle East where are reports that the Israeli Air Force bombed the southern suburbs of the Lebanese capital. This following the heaviest day of bombing in the area since Israel launched its offensive on Wednesday. We're joined from the Israeli-Lebanon border by Jennifer Griffin. In a minute, the former Supreme Allied Commander, General Wesley Clark, Edina Lekovic from the Muslim Public Affairs Council, and Joe Cirincione, Senior Vice President of the National Security for the Center for American Progress. First to Jennifer in the Middle East. Jennifer, any new activity in the... We turn to former Supreme Allied Commander General Wesley Clark and also Edina Lekovic and Joe Cirincione. All right, General, you're the military expert. What is the military situation at this point?
Well, it's very important for the Israelis to focus on Hezbollah. And the difficulty of doing that with an air campaign is that you have to have targets. So apparently these buildings in South Beirut have been associated with Hezbollah. But how many more targets are there, and what's the Israeli process for generating these targets? The best way air campaigns work is to put special forces on the ground with target designators. If they can do that, this is a big opportunity for Israel to deal a very significant blow to Hezbollah.
General, what do you think about the sophistication of the weapons that Hezbollah is using? As you know, they have a much longer range. Tell us about how you think they've upgraded these weapons.
These weapons have been brought in over a period of years. We've seen the intelligence build up over the years as Hezbollah has received these weapons. They're generally coming in from Syria or Iran. There has been Iranian and Syrian influence and support in Hezbollah, but these are not super sophisticated weapons. These are weapons that with a little bit of training and a couple of practice efforts, average, well-educated or well-trained soldiers can handle. So this is no challenge to Israel, except that these are terror weapons, and they do affect the Israeli civilian population, and Israel had to take action.
Edina, I have been surprised by the, I know that the Arab League has, said there ought to be a ceasefire, but I've been surprised at the lack of strong condemnation of the Israeli action, which sends a message to me about Egypt and Jordan, maybe not being as upset as you would think they would be about Israeli action. What do you say about that?
International bodies that are very upset by Israel's actions. And in fact, there are international leaders, including the EU, Russia, Great Britain, who have termed this a disproportionate act of war. And I think it's important that we realize that many international leaders, both in the Arab world and in other portions of the world, are looking for intervention, are looking for some sort of mechanism by which this violence can be halted, because it is claiming an inordinate amount of civilian lives, which matter to us primarily as Americans when we are thinking about the Winning Hearts and Minds campaign. If we do not step in, then we create more supporters for Hezbollah and Hamas and more enemies of the United States and others.
All right, Joe, I don't agree with Edina on this at all. I've been frankly surprised at the fact that these governments have not, severely criticized Israel. It makes me wonder if perhaps the Iranians and the Syrians have made a very serious mistake by encouraging Hezbollah to engage this way. Your reaction?
Well, I do believe that Iran is involved in this. It has to be more than coincidence that the Hezbollah kidnapping occurred on the same day that the UN Security Council agreed to take back the Iranian dossier, and it was priming for further activity criticizing Iran for its nuclear program. And that may be one of the reasons why Saudi Arabia and some of the other states have muted their view of this.
Joe, we're going to have to hold you there. We're going to come back to all of you. I think it's related to the fact that they're not comfortable with a radical group like Hezbollah running wild in the Middle East either. But we'll continue with coverage of the Middle East crisis after this short break. And later here in America, you'll be shocked to learn who's behind the secret terror videos we've uncovered. It's unbelievable who did this. We're coming right back, folks. We continue with General Wesley Clark, Edina Lekovic, and Joe Cirincione. All right, General Clark, how does this thing settle down? You don't believe this is going to spiral out of control, but we got this situation. Where does this move? What do the Israelis want? What do the Iranians want now to get this situation over with?
Well, the Israelis want their 2 captured soldiers back. Obviously, that's the first demand, but they'd like to take a real bite out of Hezbollah, if possible, deal it a significant blow, drive it away from the border with Israel, and even destroy it so that the Lebanese government can fulfill its responsibility of occupying the border area. But they'll settle, I think, as this unwinds for the release of the 2 soldiers. That's the end of Hezbollah's moral victory that it claims for having captured these 2 soldiers. Iran is going to want to de-escalate if they can do it in a way that doesn't destroy Hezbollah, because they got what they want. They got the distraction from the focus on the Iranian nuclear issue. They threw the G8 meeting into turmoil, and they've stalled. This is part of their power play to move toward their nuclear capabilities.
Joe, are there consequences to Iran for their activity here in supporting these armies?
It depends how the rest of it plays out. Remember, there was a crisis like this 4 years ago, and Iran actually played a very helpful role in April 2002, restraining